So, thanks everyone for being here. I am so excited about today's topic. If you have never attended the Learn Tourism Digital Drop In, I'm especially excited to have you joining us today. We do these every month and we talk about a variety of different topics related to everything from digital marketing to leadership and lots of different things about tourism and travel, which is our main focus and passion, and especially one of my personal focuses and passion. Today, just a couple housekeeping rules. I am recording all of this. I will provide the recording along with some other documents on Friday, so you can expect to get that in your inbox. As we go through today's webinar, I would love for you to put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I will be managing those and making sure that all of them get delivered to our special guest today. And again, if you find this information helpful, I really want to invite you, when you get the recording and the documents, feel free to tell your friends, tell your colleagues, invite other people to join us every month. This is something I've been doing since around 2015. So it's just one of my favorite parts of my job is to get to do this. And today I'm especially excited because we have Dr. Bryan Lavin with us. Thank you so much for joining us from Johnson & Wales University. And we're going to talk about a subject that I think brings a lot of mystery and questions and sometimes frustration and sometimes real big excitement, which is user-generated content. And thank you so much for being here with us, Bryan. I'm so excited to talk about this today because I feel like this is a topic I talk to lots of destinations about and lots of attractions about, lots of tour operators about. And it's always that question, what is the secret sauce? How do we get people to talk about their experience, to share their content? And I will say for me, it's funny because I was a social media manager for so many years. Everywhere I travel, I capture tons of content, but the amount of content I post is by no means equal to the amount of footage that I actually take. And so just preparing for this helped me think about what gets me excited and makes me actually post after I do something while I'm traveling or have an experience. So I'm excited to hear what you learned from your research today. And thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Sarah, for that intro, and thrilled to be here for the digital drop-ins and really to talk. I think my side of user-generated content, to your point, is one that's not really talked about. And to your point about a secret sauce, I don't know if there is one, but I do think I can have some insights that may be interesting for the folks that are here with us today, and then also that will watch the recording down the road or things like that. So just maybe a quick background on me. I've been a faculty member at Johnson & Wales, now focusing almost entirely on tourism marketing for about 10 years in all kinds of different facets, but really my heart lays in the social media space. I've been doing Facebook seminars since 2007. Hey, this stuff's real and it's helpful and it's powerful. And to see the evolution of how things have grown heading now into 2025 and really where it's changing now with AI and KPIs and marketing metrics switching around and all of these things, I think just now is a good time to be rethinking about how we do a lot of these different strategies. What I want to talk to you all about today is user-generated content and potentially shifting maybe your thinking around how you go about creating user-generated content, how you go about curating that content, and then what do we do with it once we have it, and how can we make it a little bit more meaningful? Because Sarah, to your point as well, I think I looked real quick while you were saying, and I have to date right now on my phone, like 107,000-ish photos and videos and things, almost all of them from travel experiences or things I've been doing, whether it's with a family or a business trip or something like that. And none of them shared with a brand in any sort of way to create a meaningful and authentic marketing experience. So that idea got me thinking about this concept of user-generated content. And it's weird to hear myself introduced as doctor because it's only been a year that I've had that designation. And this is one of my first speaking gigs outside of the halls of JWU, but my dissertation work was entirely on UGC. So that's where Sarah and I kicked it off to start. And what I want to share with you guys today, because I had an experience. I was working, I should say prior to academia, I worked in the DMO world. I'm from the destination side and on the marketing side. And we would always do typical social media posts. And I happened to be working with the local DMO on Pizza Week. And we said, oh, wouldn't it be so fun to get people out to eat pizza in the city and share all these different pizza pictures. And we created, my class and myself and our colleagues from the DMO created a whole engagement campaign around sharing pictures of your pizza. And we launched it, and exactly 0 people shared pictures of their pizza. So that it got me thinking, there's something here. There was great awareness, there was good likability to it. There was a lot of connections in terms of likes and shares. There was conversation around what is Pizza Week, but no one actually engaged in the user generated content portion of it. And I think that kind of spurred me into this idea of how can we curate better content, and are we asking the right questions when we're doing it, right? In addition to that, I had a personal experience with Crumble Cookie. Many of you guys might know that brand as well, where they put together a campaign where you could make a video as a crumble cookie lover and fitness lover about how these cookies could fuel your workouts. And it had like great marketing behind it. It caught my eye, and I said, wow. And the prize was a year's supply of crumble cookies. And I said, we got a lot here, right? You're speaking to a very niche audience. You're asking people to interpret the brand the way they want to interpret it, create content how they want to create it. And the prize was a decent prize. It was something that would get you motivated to create. So I spent a bunch of money. I bought a bunch of cookies. I made what I thought was like a pretty great video. Maybe I'll share that with you, Sarah, and you can put it in the Friday email doc as well, right? But to make a long story short, I lost the contest miserably because you had to sell out your Facebook channel and your Instagram channels to get votes to continue to work through this contest. And I had signed a ton of documents basically saying Crumble owns my likeness and my video and all of these other things as well to use however they want to use it. So that was another light bulb for me that said, okay, is UGC about curating content, creating assets that we can then use for marketing down the road? And how would that look for tourism? Or is it about engagement with your audience? And I think what the reality is, it's a mix of both of those things, right? But I think what we mainly focus on as a brand is engagement. How many people can we get to post our picture? How many people can we get to share our thing? How many people can do the thing we're prescribing them to do? So I wanted to dive into that research problem and say, what is it that motivates someone to actually create the content? And is it a big prize? Is it an incredible experience? Is it that they just love creating social content? Like, where do we go from there? So I dove into this academic quest to figure out how can we motivate people to produce content? And the reason why we want them to produce content is because UGC is in the travel space, like the number one, or at least top 3 motivating marketing pieces. So it influence is in intention to travel. If you see a great TikTok video or a great Instagram video or a friend doing some really cool stuff on Facebook, that will likely create awareness and then interest, desire, and ultimately action. Even more so than marketed content, right? Agency produced content or stuff that we spend a lot of time on. Anecdotally, I work very closely with the digital team here in Providence at the DMO, and they tell me all the time they'll work on a reel for 3 weeks or a month, creating this incredible piece, and then it'll get some engagement. And then they'll take a picture of a sunflower on the way into the office and post that, and it'll go bananas on their socials. So understanding what that secret sauce is and what's going to engage people, it can be a tricky thing to do. And I think in the social space, people tend to gravitate more towards authentic and real experience and kind of stuff that's produced on the fly versus things that are like really thoughtful and methodically created.
Oh, I want to throw in something too, because one of my favorite stories that I tell in classes is about an artist that I worked with for a long time. She was one of my first clients way back in the day, but she would spend a lot of time making these beautiful art pieces for her social media. And she would sometimes even like paint or craft something and then turn it into digital and then put it up. And then one day she was having this frustrating day about, she's actually now currently like 82. So when we started working together, she was in her early 60s. And she basically was complaining about retirement, and she like hand drew this little thing that was like a little protest about what it was like getting older and how annoying it was. And then she posted it just in a moment of emotion. Yeah. And that thing blew up, and she called me that day and she was like, Sarah, I have 80 comments on this thing that I posted. She said, what do I do? I want to keep it going. And I was like, girl, hang up the phone and go comment back.
Start commenting. Yeah, engaging.
Yeah. And keep having the conversations with them. Over time, this thing ended up getting almost like 20,000 reach, which for her was huge. It had probably over 200 comments by the time it like wrapped as a piece of content. And it was continuing to show up for 3 weeks in people's feeds because the conversations kept going. Because what she did was she tapped into something that her audience, that is all around the same age as her, really related to. And
Yeah.
so she had that pain of like, why do I put all this time into this beautiful artwork when I just get mad, scribble something, take a picture of it, and do really well? And what I tried to explain to her is I was like, look, these moments where people respond, and I think UGC fits into this, it's an opportunity for you to really listen
Yeah.
and really understand like what did motivate people, because
Yeah.
sometimes the motivations aren't what you think, and we can get really one tracked in our marketing brains to just lose sight of that motivating piece
Yeah.
and just be like,
Yeah.
oh, people will do it if we give them something, people will do
Yeah.
it if we buy them something,
Yeah.
or if we make something free or we make them look cool. And I'm like, actually, they have to feel it, like they have to
Right.
feel like it relates to them, and
Yeah.
that's that relationship, that relatability, and that emotion is actually what I think ends up driving not just user generated content, but engagement across the board. So I think
Yeah.
that's just what you're talking about is so key, I think, for
And,
people.
and it, so much of it is that branding 101, right? It's like that emotional connection to that brand. And how do we foster that? And if we can get that connection and strike that nerve, then we can leverage that for future content. So let me show you all. So this is, I think, what Sarah and I are talking about in scientific terms, which I think is really cool, right? So if you want to break down the motivators, there's several theories that we can apply to this to create a quantitative analysis of what really motivates people. So this is the theory of planned behavior. So it's been around since the 70s, focusing on it rose to fame with smoking cessation programming. So how do we get like the public to move away from smoking? And the idea is if you can create a positive attitude around something, get people excited about it, show them it's going to be okay, and make them feel good about it, they're more willing to engage in that behavior. Same with social norms. If people around them are doing it, or it's considered something that your friends aren't going to judge you for, people are more likely to do it. And then the last one is having control over the situation. So feeling like I'm in control as the user and not just doing a list of tasks that the brand gave to me in the context of UGC. So in theory, if we can get people to feel really good about creating content, if we can give them a place where they don't need to feel any sort of like social embarrassment or they're selling out their social feeds for a marketing agenda or something like that, and then give them control over the brand, they're much more willing to do it. Or they're willing to travel, or they're willing to stop smoking, or all of these kind of things that fill in the blanks. So what my research looked at is like, how much do those things move towards motivation? So looking to that left-hand side of co-creation of content, right? And then on the bottom two, those rectangles that you see speak to things outside of the theory that are modified into it. I wanted to look at empowerment. So if we felt like if we could empower people to create content, would they do it? And then also, do they have the technical chops to be able to create it? What's really interesting about this study is we had 380 something participants. Once you call it all through, 310 or so were usable. Resoundingly, everyone created content when they traveled. Almost everyone knew about user-generated content marketing. Almost nobody shared content with brands, right? So speaking to what we kicked things off with, so applying that to the theory, it's then saying, all right, tell me why. Like, how do you feel about it? How do you feel like your friends feel when you post content? Those kind of things. And what came out of this was really interesting. So that model that I just showed, if you can make people feel good about it, if you can give them control, if you can give them a space where they feel comfortable sharing it with society, and you can empower them to be part of their brand, that model, according to our analysis anyway, will answer about 60% of the question of why aren't people engaging with our UGC campaigns. Pretty significant in terms of where we want to go. And it makes sense if you think about it, right? And to me, having a good attitude about something, feeling in control about it, and feeling like no societal pressure about it feels a whole lot like empowerment. So I wanted to suss that out a little bit too. So running it again without empowerment in it still answers like 54% of the motivators. And generally speaking, when we dictate exactly how someone should engage with us on UGC, we're missing the mark, right? Which is why the pizza example, because we told them you have to take a picture of pizza, you have to be in a restaurant, you have to tag us, you have to tag the restaurant, you have to tag two of your friends that you want to eat pizza with. And it becomes too much. And you're taking the control away from the user at the end of the day. Am I still there? Or did I lose you
Yeah.
guys again?
Yeah, no, you're all good.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. We're still here. We're good.
Yeah, I
All right.
gotcha.
Sorry. I think it froze up for a second. Okay. All right, cool. So that was an interesting takeaway. And then I said, what about technical acumen? Do people have the ability to create content if they want to create content? And it turns out in all that statistical analysis, which you guys will get in the follow-up packet as well, if you really want to nerd out on the numbers, technical acumen has no effect whatsoever on someone's willingness to create content. I think what that speaks to is the idea of iPhones now are incredible. You can edit a lot. You can shoot in 4K. You can produce cinematic quality content, and people are much more comfortable with them. So the technology gap is not so much the big deal. The other side of it that is interesting, though, is if you look at that same group based on age, you'll see that age is a factor too. So the older we get, the less likely we are to participate. And it goes down around the 25 mark. It starts going down about 8% likely to participate for every year that you get a little bit older.
Wow.
So it's a young person's game, but that doesn't mean that other people can't create. So cool. What does this all mean? It feels very like pie in the sky. And as an academic, I like to always bring it back to what can we do as marketers, right? And I think there's a couple of key takeaways here. One is kind of rethinking about what are our engagement metrics around UGC campaign. So if we're running a marketing campaign that has a UGC component to it, what is our goal? Are we trying to get just engagement, or do we want a more balanced scorecard? Do we want to look at things like a brand awareness? Do we want to look at things like actions that come from it, booking a trip, booking an experience, something like that? Or what I think is most important is curating a bigger content library, right? So creating a place where users can be creating that content, tapping into Sarah's camera roll and my camera roll, and I'm sure all of your camera rolls, to give us a place to submit that content without having it go on social media and making us stewards of their brand message, but rather giving us a place to get that real feedback, to understand how people are engaging in our destination. What are they enjoying while they're here? How are they connecting with it? And then more importantly, how are they seeing it through their own lens? So I think having that content library piece is really important. And it's often, I think, overlooked, especially in a lot of the research. The other side of it is trying to identify who are perhaps our like micro influencers in the destination, or who are people who are most likely to engage in tourism activities, engage in creating content, and start to tell those stories. I don't know kind of size of destinations that are going to eventually take a look at this. I'm guessing small to medium in general, right? I don't know what.
Yeah, it'll be a mixture once we share it out. But yeah,
Yeah.
the folks I think on the line, there's a number of them that are in that medium range.
Yeah. To me, like a medium DMO running a UGC campaign, I think a good goal should be to get between maybe 30 to 75 usable assets that come out of it, right? So usable pictures that you can later use in your marketing or in your reels or as B-roll or something like that. But also to tag who are your users that are submitting those, identify those people, and start to nurture those relationships to bring them into your fold. I think influencer marketing, it runs a parallel to a lot of what we're talking about here.
Yes.
A lot of times user marketing is losing its influence. It's people understand paid advertising versus authentic advertising now, things like that. So I think there's a real secret sauce to identifying who are our area, who are most likely to help us out with marketing messaging and fostering those relationships. I did another study I presented this summer out in Ireland at the TTRA conference, taking a look at like, how do we identify who those people are? And through survey data and census data and tourism sentiment indexes that we can get from destinations, we can run cluster analysis to identify who in So am I unstable again?
No, you're good.
Oh, it keeps popping up. Sorry. I feel like I'm on a flow and then I get this thing popping up here. But we can identify who in a destination is our residential community that is most likely to create content for us. And I think sometimes that might be a better approach than having visitors who are only going to be there for a short period of time, also creating it. We ran a cluster analysis with basically the province of Quebec. It was a survey that had an N of 8,000 something on it. And interestingly, the most likely local micro ambassadors that would participate in a UGC campaign tend to be suburban females in the 40 to mid 50s demographic. They usually have a family, participate in a lot of activities and feel really good and want to share that content. That was an interesting analysis too. It takes us one step further into identifying like who are the true kind of micro influencers in a destination and then building it out from there.
Yeah, I want to just quickly add to this conversation
Yeah,
something I think is important for everyone to think about too. And this relates to a bigger sort of content question. But one of the things I've been studying about is how I've been a marketer for 25 years. I'm super into branding. I want everything to be branded. I often refer to marketing people as the guardians of the brand. Um,
yeah,
but to your point of saying that one of the things you learned is that we have to be more flexible about giving people the freedom to approach it how they want to. We're seeing that across the board with content too. So one of the things that
yeah,
a lot of people are noticing right now is that when you either post content that is not as branded, does not have as much logo placement, does not have as much like templated look, and when you share and curate user generated content that looks like it came from a human being that was having an experience, instead of looking like it came directly from the brand, that those things almost naturally do better in every feed at this point, right? Like as far as organic, we see that those things just get more attention, they get more engagement, they get more reach. And so I just think like what you're touching on is like also part of a bigger trend where I always say people want the realness. They want that authenticity. They want to
yeah,
know the content was
yeah,
made by an
yeah,
actual person. And so since that's the case, I think that's going to start as AI gets bigger and more AI content's coming out. I think we're just going to see that there's even more, especially with travel destinations, experiences, attraction,
right. Yeah.
things where people actually physically go there and do it. I think we're just going to see it's going to become more and more important to be more flexible with that and give
Yeah.
people
No, and I'll give you like a small example because I think that's one of my big takeaways, right? Is that we do need to be on the DMO side. We were always like our brand identity and color palettes and everything had to be locked in. And what is our brand voice and all of these things? And all of that is still important. But I think if we can use UGC as that gateway to understanding who are our best kind of content producers and people that are in the community that want to be part of that brand, we can then start to leverage it. So we're not giving up complete control of the brand, but what we are doing is getting more brand voice in from the residential community. And I can give you like a small example of how that would work, not from a destination perspective, but from a coffee perspective. I love coffee and have a,
real.
yeah, it's my lifeblood in many ways. And it's become, you said we're travel nerds in that intro video. I'm also a coffee nerd in many ways. And I didn't realize how deep and nerdy the coffee world gets. So I was getting into it and creating latte art and doing all these things and started building a small Instagram following. And over time, recently, a brand reached out to me and they said, "Hey, we love what's on your feed." I don't have it's 1,500 people. It's not a big account by any means whatsoever. But they said, "We looked at your feed. We love what you're doing. Our brand values are fitness and coffee, and we want to bring those together. We see that you do that as well. Would you be interested in trying our product?" I said, "I would love to. That would be great." So they sent me the link. I picked out a couple of coffees. They mailed them out. And I tried them and they're really good. And they said, "Would you make some content for us? We would love you to create a video, show people how you would use it, whatever." I said, "I'd be happy to do that. What are some of the talking points or what are your brand identity points? Or give me your vision of your brand in my kind of space." And they said, "No, do what you do. Just whatever is, that's cool with us." So to make a long story short, I produced for them an entire month of coffee related educational content on how to brew better coffee, why water is important, different grind methods, all the different stuff that goes along with coffee. and in putting it out there and tagging them in it, and they're collaborating on it, and it's building a great rapport back and forth. Point is, they found the right person to bestow their brand values through, and then they're getting a ton of free content for the cost of 2 pounds of coffee plus a little bit more. So you're right, bringing us full circle back to the beginning. It's not about the massive incentive. It's not about the huge grand prize. It's not about paying some influencer to create, but it is about finding the right people to create that align with your brand, letting them be free and empowered to create, making them feel really good about it, and having some sort of incentive at the end of the day where you can get their buy-in. And I think if we do those things a little bit better, the science tells us it's there, the study is there, and it's clear that people want to control what they are creating, and they don't want to put it on their social accounts. They want to put it on your social accounts. And that sometimes is enough payoff. And then we can use that to really identify who are our best digital ambassadors, our best micro ambassadors, however we want to phrase it, to help to create content for our destination. So I think that to me is the future of tourism marketing UGC, right? Is identifying the people, creating the content, and then allowing them to experience our brand how we want them to experience it, and using it as this continuous feedback loop that's going to help us do better marketing, more authentic marketing, and then also have that greater, deeper connection to community.
Yeah. And I think too, what you said about influencer marketing and UGC marketing kind of being parallel is really important because what you talked about with values is really key, I think, to making either decision. I think when you're looking for influencers, a lot of times what happens is you find somebody with a bigger following, but if they don't share your values, you don't feel comfortable letting them just do what they do.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to micromanage it a bit and you're like, don't say this or be. So then it's like, I try to tell people that person's not really a good fit for you. They might
Yeah.
have a lot of followers, but if you don't trust them to get your product, use it, or to visit your destination and talk about it, to tell the story in a way that makes sense, then maybe you really aren't aligned and you probably don't want to go with that person. You don't want to pay that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that's
I
what's
think there's a shift that needs to
emotional.
happen where we shouldn't be chasing influencers with large volumes of followers, whereas instead the DMO or the agency or the whoever is the tourism marketing partner, we want to leverage their following, right? Because that's their biggest fan. And sometimes you can raise up those smaller accounts, those kind of up and coming accounts, those people who are living and breathing the destination every day that maybe have 2,000 followers, 1,500 really loyal people in their community, and instead engage those folks. And we may actually get a better bang for the buck. We may get better return on the investment. We probably are going to get better content, and we're going to get much better brand alignment at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because I'm feel free to jump in with your research and it's say if anything supports this or doesn't. I think
Yeah,
my opinions are a little more anecdotal.
sure. Yeah,
One of the things I've noticed in working with people
yeah.
across the board, and like I said, working with destinations, but also tons of tourism businesses that are trying to attract both the locals and the visitors to help grow what they're doing. One of the things that I try to remind people of is not to overcomplicate it. I worked with a destination in Kentucky. I taught a class at an awesome event in Kentucky a few years ago in 2019. And during that class, one of the students came up to me afterwards and we started talking about the different counties he represents out in Kentucky. And I was really hitting home. Don't overcomplicate the story that you're trying to tell when you want people to engage or you want people in your community to talk about something. His basic goal was I want to get our local residents to become sort of the UGC creators
Yeah,
because we've
yeah,
got
yeah.
all these people coming into town for these other events. And we want to see them having that conversation so that the visitors come in, they end up on our page, they're going to see those conversations. And really, it was funny. We had this great sort of friendly debate about the importance to me of the emotional resonance that people have doesn't come from overcomplicating stuff.
Yeah.
Usually comes from simplifying the message. And literally the next day when he came to class, what he showed me was that he basically had come up with this idea after we talked to put up this one photo that he has of a place in their region of Kentucky where everyone, when they were in high school, used to go to make out, right? It was like the makeout spot in
Yeah,
this like
yeah,
little mountain area. And everybody would go there, watch the sunset and make out. And he put up a photo of that. And he basically just said to the local community, which was already part of his network as a destination, hey, I remember being here when I was 16. Like, what do you remember? And then literally by the next morning of class, that thing had blown up. Like,
Yeah.
literally everybody in their community had been like, I remember taking my girlfriend there. I remember driving my Firebird or whatever. And so it was really exciting for me just to see anecdotally that my advice was really strong, which was you went to something super simple. You came up with an idea that everybody who grew up here is going to have some sort of reference for this. And
Yeah.
how do we just very simply put up the image of that place and in one sentence ask people to start talking about what that place means to them? And in that conversation alone, they got other people's photos. They got other people's commentary, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that post, as they went into a big week, was like the whole community talking about this area. It's also a great place for a visitor to go to watch the sunset,
Yeah.
right? I really loved that we could see it play out directly. And I will say to everybody who's in a smaller or, like sort of medium sized destination, it's funny, but a lot of times those things are easier to identify when you're not a giant city and there's like a million options, things that people know. It's really different. And so
Yeah.
there was only one makeout place that people knew about, and it's there
Yeah.
in everybody's memory as a collective. So I
And
think
I think too, like that
speak up
speaks
there.
finding those unique kind of niche things, right? Those like little differentiators. Everyone has like cool food and local stuff. People have museums, they have convention centers, things like that. So it's finding those little things that are going to resonate with people and then letting it go from there is hugely important. That's
Yeah,
the
and I
key
will say Eric,
differentiator. And you can
yeah,
let your community figure it out, you know?
yeah, and I was gonna say Eric just dropped in the chat that he really agrees with everything you said about the smaller micro influencers. He shared that they were working with a one kind of family travel focused small family over the summer, and they massively over delivered on the content. It was a really good experience, and it's like they didn't go for the top tier
Yeah.
family on YouTube or whatever. It's go to the people that share your values, that have good stories to tell, that will relate to your audience, and let them do what they do. A lot
And
of
as
time.
DMOs, we have to remember that we're stewards of telling the story, right? So I think a lot of times we get caught up in we're going to tell the story or we're going to dictate how it's going to go or what the experience should be like when you get here. And the reality is the community dictates the story, right? And it's our job to foster that and create it together. So I love that example of kind of connecting
Oh, give us 1 second,
our
everyone.
brand? And then also, are we missing the mark or need to realign anywhere? And then I'm sure that family had a blast creating content too, right? So that there's some good positive vibes all around there.
Yeah, I will say too, one of the things that I've done in the past when I've been doing social media auditing and working with different, like I said, attractions and tours and even destinations around their social media, one of the things that I like to do is just go to YouTube and start putting in all of the different keywords related to your region or destination. And then I make a little short list that I can use in a very short amount of time of just UGC that you don't know exists.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love highlighting that for people because
Yeah.
usually because I've been doing SEO for so long and I have a really long understanding of how to search for things, I can typically go into YouTube and even with destinations who told me they have nothing in this department, I've been able to go to YouTube and usually pull down minimally a dozen examples of people that have already been in their area, already talked about everything from restaurants to where they put their boat in the lake to the water park that they went to all of that sort of stuff. And I really
Yeah.
encourage people like, hey, it doesn't take a huge amount of research sometime to go and find both people that maybe are up and coming in the influencer world and trying to build a following. But sometimes you also just find people that are doing it for the love of what they do. So essentially, one of my favorite moments was I was working with a very small destination here in North Carolina and they've really not even had a DMO, right? They're brand new. They're just bringing their destination online as an organization and getting their funding from the state. And one of the things that I found right away was a gentleman who's touring around the country, visiting small towns across America by himself because his wife died. And one of the things that they always did together was go to these different towns. And so he was like, my wife passed away, but I'm continuing our journey. And I'm just finding all these different places that her and I talked about. And I'm going. And he ended up in this tiny little town in North Carolina and had done an entire walking tour of their
Amazing.
downtown on
Yeah.
YouTube and was just like the coolest person and wasn't even looking for anything big, but just loves telling a story and it's really personally meaningful. But we would never have found that stuff if I hadn't taken maybe like 20 minutes to just
Right.
start really Googling and YouTubing exact things I thought I wanted to find about them to see if people were talking about it. And so I think there's something too for people to realize that there's stuff out there that you don't even know is there when you're curating that content bank. When you're looking for UGC, take a minute and make sure that you've actually gone out and searched for things and not just mentions of your brand, because sometimes the UGC is there but they didn't tag you, and so there's something
Hmm.
else in that video description or title or something like that gives it away. I'm curious what you think about the rise of AI content. This is something I've been reading about a lot over the last few weeks. And the fact that so many people have a better eye for recognizing that content. And actually, that people don't like it. It's funny.
Yeah.
We're intrigued by it. Don't get me wrong. We're all intrigued by it. When we see an AI tiger hugging a baby or whatever it is that's on there, I think we're all fascinated. But the truth is, people don't engage with that content when they can tell that it's bot focused. Do you think that UGC, my gut is UGC is going to become more important when it's coming from real people? And that even though this has been the side conversation and it's part of marketing and people do believe in it, I think we're going to see like a real shift in the value of real people's content as we're going into an age where I think we're going to see a lot of generated content.
Yeah. I think as quickly as we've started generating content, we've also created those filters in our minds to start to say, this is AI and it isn't. And I think you're absolutely, to me, the AI content, I don't have any like concrete research on this, but it's like quick hit stuff, right? It catches your attention and then you go, oh yeah, it's AI, and you dismiss it or you move on, but you don't really engage with it. It's just there and it's fun and it can go viral and people can do whatever. So I think there's some real positives to being able to maybe curate content with AI, but I think the actual AI generated content is probably viewed as inauthentic as maybe like a truly branded like advertisement or something like that, right? Where you may see it, it may help with the awareness and the interest, but the actual like research part, people are going to turn to the YouTubes, turn to TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever and search up and say, what are people actually doing? How are they engaging with it? So to me, I think user generated content is even more important, but I do think AI plays a huge role. Now imagine a world where we're like wildly successful. We run this UGC campaign, we get 1 million photos and videos and things. AI can analyze that and curate it and build beams and do some other stuff really quickly that would have taken a long time in the past. But I don't know if it's there from a content generation perspective yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely, I want to remind everyone, we've got a few minutes. So if you've got specific questions about UGC or obstacles that you're facing or things that you are curious about, please drop it in the chat or the Q&A and we're glad to talk about it. But I do want to throw out another question that I think is interesting, especially being in education like we are. There are a ton of different things that I could use AI generated video or imagery to educate people about. Like
Yeah.
as a designer, I will say I super judge all AI. Your designs are terrible. And I don't know why you're so much smarter than us when you can't
Yeah.
even lay out like some basic stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
I still argue that with a lot of AI people I know. I'm like, is it really better though? Because it can't even tweak spacing.
Can't even do
But
words. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm with you,
exactly.
right?
Right in English.
Get back to me when you can do a real word. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely think there's some issues there. But I think as I've been developing more content using AI, what I've realized is there's certain things I could educate people about in that way. But when it comes to our tourism and travel industry, it's a no-go. I can't make up what it's like to be in York, Pennsylvania, where Mary's from.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't make up what it's like to look at the mountains in the Endless Mountains where Jill's from. To me, in the travel and tourism industry, we're going to have an interesting content conundrum because our content has to be real and authentic. It can't be some made up perspective. I tried to do a
Yeah.
skyline of Asheville using a couple different AI things. I got the skyline of Asheville with random buildings from New York City in it.
Yeah.
None of
Yeah.
those are usable, right? So at
We
this point, it's
we
more
did
like
it.
our industry being unique and different in that
We
way.
did an interesting case study this past semester with Springfield, Massachusetts, which if you're not familiar with Springfield is the birthplace of basketball. It's like this global phenomena, right? That makes bajillions of dollars. And Springfield doesn't really capitalize on the opportunity to be like the Cooperstown of basketball. And it was funny because my students in the education space will tend to work towards AI to generate things. And I had them put together like a branding kit for Springfield. And it was all like very clearly AI generated. And it was, you're right, and I'm from Springfield, so I know the buildings. So I know what and I'm like, where's that? What is this one? And they're like, oh, you're right. We just assumed. So I literally put them in the car and we drove to Springfield and we did like a little field trip and we walked around and we took pictures and we created all these things. And the human element created a much better branding kit for the destination than the AI element. But I do think though, in terms of like content creation and how we edit content and how we build it for different platforms, and we could take like this long form kind of discussion today, right? A 50-minute or so webinar of content. And we could use AI very easily to run it and chop it into clips and to create reels out of it and to pull out key moments that may be helpful for different markets and things like that. That to me is the real benefit, I think, in AI at the moment. We do podcasting and things like that. And, what used to take me 2 hours to chop up a 30-minute podcast now takes 20 minutes in an AI program where I don't even have to be there. It's just set it and forget it. And it can do these things. So I think it's the tactical is there, but the actual, you're right. The perspective, not only does it have to be authentic from a human, but it needs to be from multiple perspectives pulled together into one, because that's how we experience a destination, right? You're going to experience it much different than I will, than someone else will, my kids will in the other room, that kind of a thing. We're all different travelers at different times. We all are dynamic in terms of why we're traveling to a place, what it is that we're doing while we're there. I think as we continue to like think about segmentation and who's coming to our cities or who's experiencing our places, it's the local and the traveler, but it's also the traveler in a variety of different ways that's amorphous and changes based on the experience. So to me, UGC can help us capture a lot of that perspective. And then maybe we run an AI program to make sense of it and understand what it is and analyze it. But yeah, I think it's got to come from the iPhone, right? Or the Meta glasses or the whatever it is that we're doing to create content is so critical. So,
By the way, I'll put out to the universe, I need somebody to make glasses besides Meta because I don't want to pay them. But I really want the glasses, but I just
yeah,
don't want it to be from them. So I want to wrap
they're a
up.
lot of fun. I have mine right here, but I got them for free
Nice.
from switching to Verizon. So Verizon.
Nice. All right. I'll have to figure out if I can do that. Thanks so much for being here, Mary. If there's any final questions, please feel free to chat them in. I do want to just wrap up with what the action items are based on our discussion today, Bryan. First, I want to say if you have never really just Googled your different town names, your different county names, your your different attraction names that are most well known, to see if you can find additional UGC that's out there, I really want to suggest that you do it on YouTube, that you do it on Facebook, that you do it on Instagram. Use that search bar, get in there, and don't put in your tag. Don't put in things that are associated with your accounts. Just put in things that are associated with your region or with your brand and see if you can find people putting stuff up there. I think that's a great way to add to your content bank or even begin one if you don't have one. I
Yeah.
also really want to encourage everyone again to think of this as a listening process. You're not just looking for the content so you can repost it, you can use it, you can do what you need to do. You're also there to learn. You're also there to understand your audience at a deeper level. So when you can see what made people post something, regardless of who they are, how many followers they have, if you can figure out just what really motivated them to make that content, I think that's something to really put in your notes as something that you need to think about when it comes to strategy. And I also just want to encourage everyone to really think about that piece of how do we guard our brands and make sure that our brands come across the way we want them to, and also give the users out there, the influencers out there, the people that would create content for us, how do we actually give them the freedom that they have the creativity and the wherewithal to do what they do? And how do we find those right people, know that we can trust them? I think that's putting a little more time into the relationship building. But you have some things to add, Bryan, as far as
Yeah, I would add. So first of all, very eloquently summed up a lot of what I just said. So probably better than I could have done it. But then also I would add to just the shifting of rethinking when we are running UGC strategy or a campaign. Why are we doing it? What is the goal? And I think to me, engagement should be a lot lower on that list. and content curation should be a lot higher, right? So making sure that we're trying to walk away with those usable assets that we can start to build those relationships with the creators, right? And find the travel family that's going to over deliver on content. Find the Bryan Lavin that's going to crush it on coffee content, right? Find those people so we can start to build those relationships. And then that starts to fulfill the community development part and helps to build a lot of other tourism sentiment in the destination.
Yeah, and I'll just tack on to that too, because I really appreciate that perspective. So thanks for rounding us out with that. I do want to say too that I think sometimes that's the difference between user generated content and owned media. I think when you're building owned media, you can look at how engagement is the top number one metric that you're looking for,
Mhm.
and that matters more. But when it comes to interacting with other people that are going to make content for you, I really think you're right. It has to be about the assets, the quality, the
Yeah.
value, all of that stuff, rather than just high engagement numbers. And so that's about I think understanding your marketing strategy in a bigger way and knowing what types of metrics and outcomes really go with
Yeah.
each part of the strategy that you're building.
And marketing metrics feel like they're changing rapidly. I know we don't have time to like even
Yeah,
get into that, but those
they're
metrics
changing
are
while we're
changing. So
talking now.
now's a good time to start having those conversations about what new metrics might look like.
Yeah, awesome. Look, Bryan, I really appreciate you being here today. This was
Yeah,
a
for
really fun
sure.
conversation for me. I love nerding out with you. Thank you
Anytime.
for sharing all your research and your smarts and your experience with us. And thanks everyone for joining us. I'm really glad this was helpful for y'all just to talk this through. And as usual, keep coming back to our digital drop ins every month. Next month, we're going to be talking about the top 10 courses or trainings or workshops that we think a lot of destinations need to be offering. And we're just going to talk about as we go into the fall, what is your best back to school plan for helping all of your staff or even your whole community level up?
I
So
love
thanks
that.
again for being here. Thanks so much, Bryan. And I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. And I will see you in September.
Thanks,
Bye.
gang.
Thanks.
Journey begins with curiosity, a desire to understand, connect, and experience something new. At Learn Tourism, the nonprofit academy, we're dedicated to empowering tourism professionals, frontline workers, and communities through transformative education. Our mission is simple but powerful: to build a better, more inclusive, and sustainable tourism industry, one learner at a time. We know training should be more than just a checkbox. Our goal is to make every learning experience transformative, engaging, and accessible, so people don't just gain knowledge, but the confidence and skills to apply it. We are nerds with a passion for learning. Our specialties include tourism ambassador training, custom workshops and courses, learning management and technology support, and fractional consulting. We also provide keynotes, educational sessions, and exceptional industry speakers at regional, national, and international events throughout the year. Want to learn with us in real life? Then save the date for March 9th and 10th, 2026, and attend our Learn Tourism Conference. Explore our 3 educational tracks: marketing and technology, visitor services and experience, and leadership and local impact. Get hands-on learning with people who share your passion for travel and community. Join our movement to transform communities worldwide through education and make learning something people love to do. Discover what's possible when we explore and grow together.